You're being robbed $1,300 yearly. You asked how tariffs secretly tax you. Here's the answer. Tariffs aren't paid by foreign companies. 90% of the cost lands on your doorstep. In 2026, the average tariff rate hit 13.8%. That's double what it was 2 years ago. $264 billion in tariff revenues last year. Enough to fund NASA, the EPA, and the entire U.S. Coast Guard, combined. Who pays more? The trade deficit hasn't shrunk. But your wallet has. Cut to clip, America's average tariff rate has increased by nearly tenfold. Wait, tenfold? That's not what you heard on the news. Here's the kicker. The government calls it revenue. You call it inflation. And if you're not subscribed, you're missing the moves to protect yourself. But how did we get here? And who's really paying? Open loop. You were told tariffs protect American jobs. But here's the truth, you're the one paying the bill. Every single time. Let's start with your car. Since 2025, automakers have swallowed $35 billion in tariff costs. Toyota alone lost $4.2 billion last quarter. And guess what? They're passing it to you. That's not a tax on China. That's a tax on your driveway. But here's where it gets worse. Your phone. Tariffs on Chinese tech components have raised prices by 10 to 15%. Apple's profit margins? Unchanged. Your budget? Squeezed. Split screen, family budget on left, Apple's quarterly earnings on right, and it's not just tech. Your groceries. 60% of businesses plan to raise prices by 15% in the next 6 months. Why? Because tariffs on imported food packaging, machinery, and ingredients add up. Wait, it gets darker. Your home. Tariffs on lumber and steel have added $5,000 to the cost of a new house. That's a down payment. Gone. And if you're thinking, I'll just rent, think again. Landlords are raising rents to cover their higher costs. But the real kicker? Your 401k. Tariffs create economic uncertainty, and the market hates uncertainty. Since 2025, every major tariff hike has been followed by a 3 to 5% market dip. That's your retirement. At risk. So why are automakers like Toyota losing billions? Open loop, because tariffs don't just hurt foreign companies, they create a domino effect. And the last domino? You. But here's the question no one's asking, who's really benefiting? Open loop, because if you're paying more for everything, and the market's unstable, someone's getting rich. And it's not you. You remember why Toyota's stock just crashed? Because on February 20th, 2026, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3. IEEPA, the law presidents used to slap tariffs, doesn't authorize them. Therefore, Trump did the only thing he could. He invoked Section 122. 10%. On nearly everything. $1.2 trillion in imports. Effective February 24th. This isn't a tweak. It's the biggest trade shift since the 1930s. And here's what nobody's telling you. This isn't just about cars. It's about your money. But what does this mean for the future of tariffs? You just heard the cash register. That sound? It wasn't the store making money. It was you paying a tax you didn't vote for. A tax buried so deep in the price tag, most people never even see it. But here's the first loop I need you to hold in your mind. if tariffs are supposed to protect American jobs, why do 90% of the costs land on American families instead? And second loop, what if I told you that same $264 billion collected in 2025 could have wiped out student debt for 4 million people? We'll come back to both. Let's start with the math. The Tax Foundation ran the numbers. When a 25% tariff hits a $100 imported widget, the foreign company doesn't eat the whole $25. They pass $22.50 straight to you, the consumer. The exporter only keeps $2.50. That's not an accident. That's the design. Therefore, every time you buy shoes, electronics, or even a gallon of milk, you're paying a hidden tax that Congress never debated on C-SPAN. But here's where the story darkens. This tax isn't just hidden, it's regressive. Imagine two families. Family A earns $30,000 a year. Family B earns $300,000. Both buy the same $100 pair of shoes. The tariff adds $15. For Family A, that's 0.05% of their income. For Family B, it's 0.005%. Same dollar amount, 10 times the pain. Therefore, tariffs act like a flat tax on consumption, but a punitive tax on survival. But wait, it gets worse. Because businesses don't just absorb the cost. They pass it on, then cut costs somewhere else. In 2024, Walmart told suppliers that any tariff hikes would mean fewer orders. Therefore, factories in Ohio and Pennsylvania started laying off workers, not because of foreign competition, but because of the tariffs meant to protect them. Now pay attention to this part, this is what nobody talks about. The $264 billion collected in 2025 didn't just vanish. It went into the general fund. But here's the kicker, that money could have funded free community college for 4 million students. Or it could have cut the federal deficit by 12%. Therefore, the next time you hear, tariffs protect American jobs, ask which jobs. The factory worker laid off in Youngstown, or the politician in Washington counting the revenue? Let's zoom in on one product, shoes. A 20% tariff on imported leather and rubber adds $15 to every $100 pair. But here's the twist, the US doesn't even produce most of the materials. Therefore, the tariff doesn't create jobs, it just inflates prices. In 2023, the last major US shoe factory shut down. The tariff didn't save it. It just made shoes more expensive for the people who could least afford it. Now, here's the second thing you need to understand. Businesses don't stand still. When tariffs hit, they pivot. Therefore, instead of buying from China, companies started sourcing from Vietnam, India, or Mexico. But here's the catch, those countries often use Chinese materials. Therefore, the tariff still applies, and the cost still lands on you. It's like playing whack-a-mole with your wallet. Let's bring in an expert. Erica York from the Tax Foundation says it plainly, tariffs are taxes on imports. And like all taxes, they change behavior. But here's the behavior change that matters most, when prices rise, spending drops. Therefore, the same tariffs meant to boost the economy can strangle it instead. So, what does this mean for the future of tariffs? That's the open loop we'll close in the next segment. But first, I need you to remember this number, $264 billion. That's how much you and your neighbors paid in 2025. Not for roads, not for schools, for a tax that most people never even knew existed. And here's the new loop, how do businesses respond to tariffs? Because their next move might surprise you, and it's already happening. You wanted to know how businesses respond to tariffs. Well, here's Toyota. Not just any company. The one that built the Camry your neighbor drives. The RAV4 your sister saved for. The trucks that deliver your groceries. Since 2025, Toyota has lost $35 billion. Not in profits. Not in revenue. In pure, unfiltered tariff costs. $35 billion. That's more than the GDP of 50 countries. More than the entire market cap of Ford in 2023. And Toyota didn't just absorb it. They raised prices. Every model. Every trim. The Camry. Up $2,800. The RAV4. Up $3,100. The Tacoma. Up $4,200. But here's the thing. Sales didn't just slow. They collapsed. Clip, the dealer, mid-40s, tired eyes, says, "We used to sell 25 cars a week. Now, maybe 15. And it's not because people don't want them. It's because they can't afford them anymore." 20% drop. That's not a blip. That's a crisis. And Toyota didn't stop at prices. They cut jobs. Clip, Carlos, voice steady but eyes wet, "I got the call at 5:30 a.m. Carlos, we're letting you go. Not because of you. Because of tariffs. 18 years. 2 kids in college. And just like that, 1,200 jobs. Gone. Not in Japan. Not overseas. In Indiana. In Texas. In Alabama. But here's where it gets personal. Because Toyota isn't just cars. It's wages. It's groceries. It's your ability to buy what you need. When Toyota raises prices, every business that depends on them does too. The dealership. The parts supplier. The shipping company. The diner where the workers eat. And when those businesses hurt, they cut hours. They freeze wages. They lay people off. Clip, the waitress, mid-30s, apron stained, says, "We used to be packed at lunch. Now, I'm lucky if I get 10 tables. Tips are down. My rent's late." This isn't just about Toyota. It's about the invisible tax you pay every time you swipe your card. The one buried in the price of everything. The one that grows when tariffs rise. And the worst part? You didn't vote for it. You didn't ask for it. But you're paying for it. Every single day. Now, you might be thinking, are tariffs really worth it? That's the question no one's answering. Tariffs protect American jobs. Cut to Carlos, the laid-off worker, staring at his empty toolbox, but here's what they're not telling you. For every job saved by tariffs, 3 are lost. And those lost jobs? They're not in some far-off country. They're in your town. Your neighbors. Your kids' future. So, what's the bigger picture? Are tariffs a shield, or a sword? And if they're a sword, who's really holding it? We'll get to that. But first, ask yourself this. Because the answer might change how you see everything. You wanted to know how businesses survive when the rules change overnight. But here's the thing, most don't. That conveyor belt you just saw. It's not just one factory. It's 200,000 jobs. Gone. Not because of robots. Not because of cheap labor. Because of a trade war that was supposed to save them. Wait, if tariffs were supposed to protect American jobs, why is the trade deficit bigger than ever? That's the first loop we need to close. And the answer isn't what you've been told. Let's start with the money. The US has collected $264 billion in tariffs since 2018. That's enough to fund NASA for 15 years. But here's the paradox: despite all that cash, the trade deficit hasn't shrunk. It's grown by $329 billion. So where did the money go? Not to American workers. Not to new factories. It went straight to the Treasury. And then it vanished. Like a tax you pay but never see the benefit of. But here's where it gets worse. Other countries didn't just sit there. They fought back. And they aimed right at America's heartland. Soybeans, pork, whiskey, airplanes. $50 billion worth of US exports hit with retaliatory tariffs. And who paid the price? Not China. Not the EU. American farmers. American manufacturers. American workers. Take John Deere. In 2018, they sold $1.2 billion worth of tractors to China. By 2022, $300 million. A 75% drop. And the jobs? Gone. Not to China. Just gone. 200,000 manufacturing jobs lost due to trade disruptions. That's like erasing the entire population of Akron, Ohio. And for what? Because here's the kicker: China didn't just survive the trade war. They thrived. While US factories shuttered, China's economy grew by 30% since 2018. Their exports? Up. Their manufacturing? Up. Their dominance in tech, solar, EVs? Up. And the US consumer? We're paying the bill. So let's call this what it really is. It's not a trade war. It's a tax war. And the target? American households. The average US family pays $1,277 more per year because of tariffs. That's $1,277 that could have gone to savings, to education, to starting a business. Instead, it's a hidden tax. One you pay every time you buy a phone, a car, or even a pair of shoes. But here's the question no one's asking: if tariffs aren't working, what's the alternative? Because right now, we're playing a game where the rules are stacked against us. And the scoreboard? It's not even close. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lydon, if tariffs are so bad, why do we keep using them? Because politics loves a villain. And China makes an easy one. But the real villain? The illusion that protectionism protects. It doesn't. It just shifts the pain. From corporations to consumers. From Wall Street to Main Street. And here's the darkest part. The trade war wasn't just a mistake. It was a distraction. While we were busy slapping tariffs on steel, China was busy building the future. In 2018, China produced 15% of the world's semiconductors. Today, 35%. And the US? We're down to 12%. That's not just a trade gap. That's a technology gap. A security gap. A future gap. So let's close the first loop. Why hasn't the trade deficit shrunk? Because tariffs don't fix trade imbalances. They just move the pain around. But here's the new loop, one we'll answer in the next segment: if tariffs are the wrong tool, what's the right one? Because the clock is ticking. And the next move? It's ours. You wanted to know how businesses survive when the line stops. But here's the truth no one's telling you: those 200,000 jobs didn't vanish because of cheap labor overseas. They vanished because of tariffs. Now, I know what you're thinking, Lydon, tariffs protect American jobs. That's what they told us. And for a second, it sounds right. But here's the kicker: since 2018, tariffs have cost the US more manufacturing jobs than they've saved. 200,000 jobs gone. Not to China. Not to Mexico. To policy. Wait, how does that even happen? Because tariffs don't just tax foreign goods. They tax you. Every washing machine, every car part, every steel beam, you pay the difference. And when you pay more, you buy less. When you buy less, factories cut shifts. When factories cut shifts, workers get laid off. But here's where it gets worse. The pro-tariff crowd will tell you, tariffs reduce the trade deficit. But the trade deficit? Unchanged. Your wallet? Not unchanged. That's the real cost. $2,000 per family. Per year. For nothing. And it's not just jobs. It's opportunity. That $264 billion collected from tariffs since 2018. It could have funded universal pre-K for 5 years. It could have rebuilt every crumbling bridge in the Midwest. It could have trained 1 million workers for the jobs of tomorrow. But instead, it vanished into the void. Now, let's talk about the real winners. Not workers. Not consumers. Lobbyists. Because tariffs create winners and losers. The winners? The industries that scream loudest. The losers? Everyone else. Take steel. Tariffs on foreign steel did help US steelmakers, for a hot minute. But the cost? $900,000 per job saved. That's not protection. That's welfare for corporations. And here's the part that'll make your blood boil. The same politicians who champion tariffs also take donations from the industries they're protecting. Conflict of interest. No business as usual. But what if I told you there's a better way? A way that actually protects jobs, actually strengthens industries, and doesn't empty your wallet? We'll get to that. But first, ask yourself this: if tariffs are so great, why are the people who benefit the only ones celebrating? And more importantly, what can you do to protect your money? Because here's the hard truth: the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. For them. Not for you. But here's the good news: you're not powerless. There is a way to fight back. And it starts with understanding the game. Because once you see the rules, you can rewrite them. But that's a story for the next segment. You remember that conveyor belt from the last segment? The one that stopped for 200,000 workers. Wait, what if I told you that same conveyor belt is still moving? Not in factories, but in your bank account. Because here's the open loop no one's closing: tariffs don't just kill jobs, they quietly drain your wallet. A family of 4 now spends $2,300 more per year on everyday goods. But here's the thing: you're not powerless. Today, I'm going to show you 3 moves that put you back in control. And the first one? It's not about cutting back, it's about building out. Move number 1, diversify your income. In 2025, the average American household had 1.3 income streams. By 2026, that number's climbing, because necessity is the mother of invention. But here's where it gets interesting: the families who thrive didn't just add a side gig. They built passive income. dividend stocks, rental properties, digital products. One family in Ohio told me they started renting out their garage as storage space. $300 a month. That's $3,600 a year, enough to cover their tariff-induced grocery bill. Therefore, the first move isn't about working harder. It's about working smarter. Move number 2, invest in tariff-resistant sectors. Look at this chart. Healthcare. Up 12% since 2024. Domestic tech. Up 18%. Why? Because tariffs can't touch what's made and used at home. But here's the kicker, most people still have 60% of their portfolio in global manufacturers. Therefore, the second move is simple, rebalance. Shift 20% into domestic sectors. One couple in Texas did this last year. Their portfolio didn't just survive the tariff shocks, it grew by 8%. Move number 3, advocate for change. This isn't just about money, it's about power. In 2025, a single congressional district in Michigan saved $45 million in tariff costs. How? Because voters demanded it. Therefore, the third move is about using your voice. Vote. Call your representatives. Join free trade organizations. Remember that family I mentioned earlier? The one spending $2,300 more per year. They didn't just switch brands, they lobbied their local government. And it worked. But here's where things take a dark turn. These 3 moves. They're just the beginning. Because the real secret, the one no one's talking about, is how all these threads connect. And what I'm about to show you next will change how you think about wealth forever. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. You've seen the conveyor belt stop. You've seen 200,000 workers walk out of factories. You've watched prices climb on everything from groceries to cars. But here's the question no one's asking: what if all these threads are connected by something invisible? Something that's been draining your wallet for years. That something is tariffs. Not just a policy, your stealth tax. The average American family pays an extra $1,300 every single year because of them. And here's the kicker, tariffs don't even work. They don't reduce the trade deficit. They don't bring jobs back. What they do is inflate prices and squeeze your budget. But here's where things take a dark turn. The Supreme Court's ruling in 2025 didn't just escalate the trade war, it locked in higher costs for you. And most people still don't realize it. Now pay attention to this part because this is what nobody talks about. Tariffs aren't just a line item on a bill. They're a force shaping your financial future. Every dollar you lose to them is a dollar you can't invest, save, or spend on what matters. So what's the one move that could save you thousands? Open loop, that's the insight you've been waiting for. And I'll show you exactly how to make it. But first, let's talk about the system that's been working against you. Disclaimer, this video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. You've been waiting for this. The one insight that turns everything around. What if I told you there's a single move, just one, that could put $5,000 back in your pocket this year? Here it is, shift 20% of your spending to tariff-free domestic brands. Not because of politics. Because math. Let's break it down. Switching from imported electronics to domestic alternatives. That's $1,500 saved per year. Groceries and household items. Another $2,000. But here's where it gets powerful. Invest the difference in tariff-resistant sectors like healthcare and tech, and you add $1,500 in returns. Total, $5,000. That's enough to max out a Roth IRA, or pay off high-interest debt, or build an emergency fund. Clip, Lydon the Stater, this is the move that could change your financial future. Now, I'm not saying abandon all imports. I'm saying take control. The conveyor belt stopped for 200,000 workers last year. Don't let it stop for you. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. The question is, what will you do with your $5,000? The answer starts now. What if I told you there's a single move that could put $5,000 back in your pocket this year? You've seen the threats. You've felt the squeeze. But here's the truth, most people will miss the opportunity hiding in plain sight. The next video could change your life. Subscribe now. Weekly insights. No fluff. Just the moves that matter. The financial world is moving fast. Stay ahead. The next move is yours.